Hello and welcome back to Genesis Designs and Modelcraft and the final episode of the Shark-Toothed Pony, my build of the Arma Hobby P-51 kit, and what a thoroughly enjoyable build it has been. So from the last episode I left it, this thing was pretty much there, and honestly I didn't film any of the rest of it because it was essentially just final construction and there really wasn't anything to report. It all goes together exactly the way you would expect it to, and indeed would like it to. Small points to note, I suppose. Well, I did peel off those fuel point decals. I did not like them. As I mentioned, I think in the last video, I do find stencils, especially in the smaller scales, can sometimes look a bit overbearing, and I felt that they did. They have left some slight scars in the weathering, which is a touch irritating, because it will cause a lot of work to fix that now with paint, so I'm simply not going to bother and pretend that those are in fact weathering marks. Anyway, moving on. I'm really pleased with this build. I think it looks really great. I'm not going to claim that I've absolutely cracked this foiling business. I don't believe that I have. There's still room for improvement, without a shadow of a doubt. However, I absolutely adore the really subtle undulations and imperfections that you get in the surface here, that just, for me, for my eyes, make it look so much more realistic than a perfectly smooth, perfectly flat, silver painted kit surface. They're just these little sort of tiny nicks and marks that you get in it, and tiny little lifts at panel edges and things. It just looks so realistic, really, even in this tiny scale, and I wasn't truly very sure that it would look great in this small scale, but it does. So this kit then, well, what a belter. Oh yes, you can see that my red touch-up is not entirely spot on there. Red's a really awkward colour, and this is quite a bright and translucent red, so it is very difficult to match. To fix that absolutely properly, I'd have to mask off the teeth and actually spray it, and I lacked motivation to do that, to be honest. So here it is. Yeah, it's out of the box, but bear in mind this box did contain really everything you could ever want. Masks, photo etch, were all there. So the only change I made was to use Albion Alloys brass tubing for the gun barrels, because I felt the kit items looked a little bit chunky. I would normally drill out the exhausts on models like this, but again I had a crisis of confidence. They are very tiny, and whilst it does undoubtedly still make a difference to the look of the thing, I just looked at them and I wasn't there on that day, so I didn't do them, and that's fine. We don't have to, do we? Weathering wise, as I showed you, it's all done with oil brushes and enamel thinners pretty much. I used some pigments for the exhaust in the end. I did initially paint it in my normal mixture, which is the Tamiya red, brown and black soot mixture, which I absolutely love using for exhaust, but on this occasion, because of the foil finish, it really didn't stick, and as soon as I touched it after having done it, you obviously get a lot of almost invisible overspray, which becomes intensely visible as soon as you touch it and rub it off again. So I spent a bit of time with some small cotton buds, just gently polishing that all back off again, and just used a little bit of pigment, which has worked quite well actually. So yeah, I'm really happy with it. It was a really sweet build. I looked back through the other episodes to see how I went about it, but the fit of the kit is excellent. There's really very few issues with quality. There are a couple, but they're minor. And the only fly in the ointment for me, and it's being a little bit brutal, is the decals. I don't think the decals were great. Yes, they work, they're serviceable, but they're not the nicest to use. And frankly, I think they could have been better, especially given, let's be honest, the premium price of the product is about £25 in the UK for a tiny 72nd scale kit. That isn't really cheap. But it does lead me on to what is going to be the rest of this video, and that's a discussion about where we're at with 72nd kits these days. They really are just on another level to what they've ever been previously, and this kit for me so far has got to be the pinnacle of that. And I've got a few others here, and I want to just do some comparisons and chat a little bit about them. So the first one, probably the most obvious competitor really to Arma Hobby, and this is all just my opinion, so forgive me if it doesn't match yours, is Eduard. So this is an Eduard Spitfire 9. Again, this is out of the box. This was built for Scale Airfix Model World when the kit was released. Yeah, and this is a beautiful kit, absolutely stunning. But there's one major factor that differentiates this kit and others like it from Eduard with this one, and that's the simplicity of the build. This kit has a blend of immense detail and moulding accuracy, which without being complicated. The Eduard kit, and it's the same with their 48th scale models, it's very fiddly. There are a lot of very small parts that you have to glue together to make another small part, which you then glue onto a slightly bigger part to eventually end up with an assembly, where this one is a lot more sort of intricate moulding involved, so that you've got bigger parts in the first place, without losing the finesse on the smaller parts, it has to be said. So yeah, the Eduard is similarly detailed. The surface detail is just as good. The fit is just as good, and the moulding quality is pretty much identical. So they're on a very similar level to each other. But these are much more fiddly to build. Next up, here, Special Hobby. Bit of a loss leader maybe, because I do think these kits, these latest Special Hobby kits, I do think might have been developed in conjunction with Eduard, so the style of the kit is very similar. Again, beautiful surface finish, rivets and all the rest of it, really good detail, but like the Eduard kit, quite fiddly in its construction, or as fiddly as you can ever get with a 72nd 109. There's only so many parts you can have in a 72nd 109, I think. Which leads me on to Tamiya. So this is a Tamiya 109G, one of their most recent, if not the most recent 72nd kit from them. And for me, they're still winning the fight. I think that the European manufacturers really are catching and possibly overtaking Tamiya in terms of detail. For instance, this doesn't have a riveted skin finish, this is just panel lines. You may prefer that, you may not. The actual levels of detail, truthfully, are similar, but the Tamiya is slightly simplified as compared to these. But where Tamiya still win hands down for me is the quality of the moulding. The quality of the moulding of a modern Tamiya kit still far surpasses any of these. And again, that blend of having a detail and allying it to a simplicity of construction, Tamiya are the absolute masters of that, producing a kit which has a great level of detail without adding any complexity for the modeller. And again, you may or may not be a fan of that approach, but honestly you can't really knock it, I think. There are those of us, and I count myself among them in some respects, who actually like the challenge of a more complicated build. But even then, there are going to be times when you really can't beat just sitting down and clicking together a Tamiya kit, or a Bandai Gundam or Star Wars kit or something, that just have that insane level of delicate engineering that just allow perfect fit without any effort from the modeller. I do think this Arma Hobby P-51 is the closest I've seen yet to having that blend of detail and simplicity of build. The surface detail, the quality of it, as with these others actually, is every bit as good as Tamiya, but the quality of the mouldings is not, and that runs across the board with these other manufacturers. You will get little bits of flash, you will get little bits of sink marks and things. This kit has sink marks in the fuselage which are still there, which I may be picking up the light right now, and it had flashy edges all around these joints in the fin. You remember, if you look back to my quick snip review, that I expressed concern about whether or not that would cause issues with the fit. In the end it didn't, but you can see when you look closely and are inclined to be critical that the fit there isn't perfect. So yeah, for me, Tamiya still win, because they do have that blend of quality and the ease of build with the detail. And I'm going to be a bit controversial here, but again, it's just an opinion and it doesn't have to be right for everybody. But I think another major competitor that's sneaking in on the big guys is Airfix. This is an Airfix B25, as you can see, if you're not blind. Another one that I built for Airfix Model World a few years back. Now, to be fair, this does have a lot of detail parts added, but for the purpose of what I'm talking about, I think it displays adequately. Again, look how nice the surface detail is, the shape, the fit and the finish, it's all there. The only thing that lets Airfix down in comparison to these others is probably the quality of the moulding, because I do insist on using that dreadful plastic still. But there you go. I think regardless of your opinion on who's best or who's better, we are certainly living in a golden age of plastic model kits, and especially in these smaller scales, which I feel have been potentially slightly neglected as compared to the larger scales, really. I've got a couple here that I've not yet built, which I think are going to be new sort of contenders, if you like. The IBG Dora looks fabulous in the box. I will be doing an inbox on this, possibly a quick snip, and again has that sort of great level of detail, but I feel that probably inherits the finicky build from Edward. And then on the other end of the scale, this is a Zvezda snap fit kit. Don't even need glue. Costs about £8. No glue required, but the moulding quality and the levels of detail on this kit, and again I'll bring you a review soon, are like you might have expected from someone like Hasegawa a few years ago. Absolutely stellar for £8, and you don't even need glue. There's a picture of it in its raw form. Absolutely outstanding. Zvezda might not be everyone's cup of tea at the minute, or maybe ever again, but it's there and it's in stock, so I'll have a look at it. But anyhow, that was a little digression, I know, but there's not really much to say about this apart from it's finished. I love the finished model. I love the markings. It's a great choice of markings on the part of Arma, and I've thoroughly enjoyed the build. I cannot recommend it enough. For a fan really of any aspect of this model, whether it purely be you're a fan of making gorgeous models or you're a fan of the Mustang or anything else, this is a great kit. And it was a thoroughly enjoyable project, even though I made life hard for myself by using foil. So just to finish off then, I'd like to thank again Andy Hills from Antics Online. He supplied the kit initially. Yes, I did pay for it, but he did give me a small discount. He does stock Arma kits, so I'd like to thank him for his continued support of the channel. I'd like to thank Jonathan Mock of the Interesting Modelling Company for the banner. He always does the artwork for me for the video banners, because I'm an absolute biff at things like that, and his creativity and the excellence of his artwork is much appreciated. And finally, thank you guys, the viewers. I really hope you enjoyed this series, the Arma Hobby Shark Tooth Pony, as much as I did, and that you may have gleaned some useful tips along the way. And that's it for this one. So the next serial build on the channel is going to be the Revel 1/48 scale SR71 Blackbird. That will be upcoming shortly, not straight away. I have other things I need to attend to, but I've got a few inboxes and whatnot coming up for you, and a couple of Book of Genesis videos in the pipeline as well. So it only remains for me to say, until the next video, look after yourselves, look after each other, and Genesis out.